It's about the public charge. The Supreme Court ruling that I think it was when was it, last Monday?
27.
There was also, at the end of last year, there was a lot of talk about nurses having to have health insurance within 30 days of entering the country, and that was blocked I think it was was it in the federal court? Yeah, it was in the federal court.
Yeah.
So now that the Supreme Court has passed the legislation on public charge, does that in any way affect the nurses that will nurses need to have health insurance within 30 days of arriving?
No.
Is that going to be good?
Yeah.
So that's another question that's coming through.
It's confusing, but there's two separate lawsuits. Mm-hmm. So the lawsuit that was blocking the Trump administration from enforcing the public charge rule. By the way, it's not it's not decided by the courts yet, but while it's being decided, the court said we're going to have an injunction. We're going to prevent the administration from enforcing the public charge rule until, a couple of years from now when we decide the case. And the administration took that all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, no, they can enforce the public charge rule starting on February 24th, new applications filed after February 24th, while this lawsuit goes on. And we're not saying whether it's going to win or whether it's going to lose, but in the meantime, they can enforce it. However, there's a separate lawsuit against the 30-day health insurance ban, okay? And that is still enjoined. So I would tell I've told all my nurses, just take a deep breath right now, because you don't have to worry about having health insurance within 30 days. But it's mainly, technically, it applies to everybody coming into the US, but, nobody's going to be denied on a public charge ground who's, making over $50,000 a year to come to the United States. Mm-hmm. They're going to be focusing on family people who have taken certain government benefits. Their kids got free lunches funded by the federal government. They were on SNAP, which is food stamps, or Medi-Cal, which is health insurance, and so on. And those people really have to worry. They really have to get their applications in before February 24th. But at least until there's some change in the health insurance injunction, the nurses do not have to worry about it. And frankly, if, I hope it doesn't happen, but if they remove the injunction on the health insurance thing, they'll just have to, the employers will have to get with it and make sure they offer all the nurses health insurance within their first 30 days, or they won't be able to bring them to the US. And I think the employers will do that because we have a huge shortage of nurses.
Of course.
Chris or Jacob, any comments on the health insurance issue or the public?
Yeah,
health?
so like we said before, it's those two things are separate and people confuse them. But I think the biggest thing with the public charge to me is that they're shifting the burden from the US citizen petitioner to the applicant in a way, and they have all these tests about their age, about their health, about their education, which is going to make it very difficult for families to integrate. So I think that's the kind of the biggest impact. But it's not going to affect people who come here to work or study, because they're already proving that they have money to come here.
Okay.
I agree with what Jacob and Carl are saying. I mean, just to put everyone's mind a little bit at ease, even more so, there's 7 factors that they're going to look to with respect to the public charge. And we can just really quickly go through them. One is age. And if you're between 18 and 62, that cuts in your favor, which most of the nurses are going to be. So that's good. 2, if you're healthy, i.e. you're not in need of health care, that also cuts in your favor, which for nurses, that's almost always going to be the case. Your family status, they're going to look at your household size. Now, if it's you, a spouse, and 10 children, that could be a problem because you would need to show enough income. But as Carl says, if you're in the $50,000 or $60,000 range, that's almost always going to cut in your favor. They're going to look at any other financial resources. So if you have savings or things like that. They're going to look at your education and skills, which for nurses, that's massively in your favor. You're in you're in a high skilled occupation, and you've got a lot of schooling. And they're going to look for the sixth is they're going to look at what your visa classification you're applying for. And as Carl says, that's going to really cut against maybe the family-based cases, but cut in favor of all the employment-based. So you can see in all six, and then the seventh is something called an affidavit of support, which is actually, it's so favorable, it's actually irrelevant in employment cases. So if you go through all seven, all of them are really going to cut in favor of all of the nurses. So, but like Jacob and Carl, I'm optimistic that this may be a little more paperwork needs to be put together, but ultimately it shouldn't lead into a visa refusal.
Yeah.
Well, we like optimism.
The one thing is if somebody is not qualified, they're going to allow them to post a bond of some sort. So, there's hope.
There's hope. Okay. We like hope. We like optimism. That's good.